The first thing you learn as a new parent is that sleep stops being a right. It becomes a negotiation. You trade it in 5-minute chunks, and you start trusting machines to watch the dark for you. That's why this case is so cruel, because it doesn't begin with footsteps or a cold spot or a slammed door. It begins with a baby monitor doing exactly what it was built to do. Listening. The house was quiet. The baby was finally down. And the monitor, sitting on the kitchen counter, started picking up breathing from the nursery. Slow, steady, adult breathing. Too close to the microphone. Too clean. Like someone was standing over the crib with their mouth inches from the rails. The mother, Lena, froze with her hands still wet at the sink. The father, Mark, didn't look up at first because he'd been hearing phantom noises for weeks. Exhaustion makes you imagine danger. It also makes you miss it. Then the monitor's screen lit up on its own. Night vision. The nursery was empty. No baby in the crib. No movement. No shadow crossing the floor. Just a black and white room with the rocking chair in the corner and the door half closed. And the breathing kept going. That's the detail every report agrees on. The audio didn't crackle. It didn't cut out. It didn't sound like interference. It sounded like lungs. Right there, in a room nobody was standing in. Mark did what any rational person would do. He picked up the monitor and watched the screen harder, like attention could force an explanation. The breathing shifted slightly, as if whatever was making it leaned closer to the microphone. Then a whisper came through the speaker. Not a voice they recognized, not a growl, not a scream. Just a calm sentence in a tone that sounded like it was trying to help. Don't check. If this is already getting under your skin, hit like and subscribe. It helps me keep digging into cases like this. Now, back to the timeline. Because what happens next is the reason this file has a rule at the top, written in thick marker by the investigator who reviewed the footage. Do not check the baby monitor. At 2:12 a.m., Lena's phone shows a motion alert from the nursery camera. At 2:13 a.m., Mark walks to the nursery door, opens it, and finds the room exactly the way it should be. No one inside, no open windows, no signs of entry. The baby is not there because the baby isn't supposed to be there. They'd moved the bassinet into their bedroom earlier that night after a rough feeding. At 2:14 a.m., the monitor's audio records breathing again, still adult, still close, followed by a second whisper, quieter than the first. Don't look for it. It looks back, and that's where the case stops being a creepy noise story and becomes something procedural. Because every time they check, the breathing gets closer, the alerts become more frequent, and the monitor starts showing things that aren't in the room when the parents physically walk in to confirm. You can't be in two places at once. But the monitor can show you a version of the room that doesn't exist, until you believe it does. Mark didn't say it out loud, but his whole body was doing the same thing, trying to turn terror into a fixable problem. He took the monitor closer to his face like it was a microscope. The nursery stayed empty on screen. The breathing stayed present on audio. Lena whispered, "It's not the baby. It's too slow." That was true. Newborn breathing is quick, irregular, light. This was steady, adult, controlled, like someone trying to be heard without moving. Mark did the first check. He walked to the nursery, pushed the door open, and flipped the light on. Nothing. No one in the rocking chair. No shape behind the curtains. No open window. No draft. No smell. The room was exactly what it should be, and that's what made it worse. Because when he looked back at the monitor in his hand, the screen didn't match what he was seeing with his own eyes. The monitor still showed the nursery in night vision. Black and white, dark, empty. It was like the device refused to update, like it was showing a version of the room that existed a few seconds out of sync with reality. Mark turned the light back off, stepped into the hallway, and watched the monitor screen shift smoothly back to night vision. The breathing got louder, not louder in volume, closer. Lena's eyes were wide. "It followed you." Mark whispered, "It's just the microphone picking up the house." The monitor answered immediately with a soft inhale that sounded like it came from inches away. Then the whisper came again, clearer this time. "Don't check." Mark snapped the nursery door shut and walked back to the kitchen. His hands were steady, but his face wasn't. He placed the monitor on the counter like it was evidence. Lena pulled her phone out and opened the camera app connected to the nursery. If the monitor was wrong, the camera would settle it. The camera feed loaded. Night vision. Empty room. Breathing on the baby monitor. No breathing on the camera audio. Two devices looking at the same room, one hearing a presence, the other hearing nothing. That contradiction was the hook. It didn't prove what it was. It proved what it could do. Mark grabbed the monitor again, thumb hovering over the volume. The rational part of him wanted to turn it down, mute it, cut the sound, and reclaim the house. The breathing stopped the moment his thumb touched the button. Not gradually. Instantly. Silence. Mark froze. Lena whispered, "It knows what you're doing." Then the breathing resumed, but different now. Not steady, not adult, faster, like someone imitating panic to trigger theirs. Mark turned the volume down anyway. The monitor didn't get quieter. The breathing stayed the same volume, same closeness, as if volume was a suggestion the device could ignore. And then the room on screen changed. The night vision image still showed the empty nursery, but the rocking chair moved a fraction. One slow creak forward, then stillness. Mark and Lena stared at each other because the chair had not moved in real life. They could see the nursery door from the kitchen. No one had walked in. The monitor speaker whispered, calm and almost amused, "Now you're watching." Lena backed away from the counter as if the monitor could reach out. Mark didn't. Mark leaned in harder, like the only way to defeat fear was to stare it down until it became normal. The rocking chair on the monitor creaked again. A slow, deliberate sway. Mark's eyes flicked to the nursery door in the hallway. It was closed. Still. No movement. No shadow under the door. He looked back to the monitor screen. The chair swayed once more. And in the speaker, the breathing synchronized with the motion. Inhale as the chair moved forward. Exhale as it moved back, like a lullaby designed for someone who wasn't a baby. Lena whispered, "Stop looking at it." Mark swallowed. "If I don't look, how do I know the baby's safe?" That was the trap's favorite lever, responsibility. Because baby monitors exist to turn a parent's fear into vigilance. And vigilance is a form of attention you can hijack. The whisper came again, close, calm. "You don't." Mark's jaw tightened. "Who is this?" The monitor didn't answer the question. It answered the impulse. The screen flickered once, a clean exposure dip, and when it stabilized, there was something new in the nursery image. Not a person. A shadow in the corner where the rocking chair's legs met the floor. A darker patch of darkness that didn't match the geometry of the room. Too sharp, too anchored. Lena's throat tightened. That wasn't there. Mark forced himself to stand. He walked to the nursery door again, leaving the monitor on the counter with its speaker still breathing. He opened the door fast and flipped the light on. The nursery was empty. No shadow in the corner. No rocking chair moving. No presence. Just a still room with soft baby decor and the ordinary smell of clean laundry. Mark stood there, light on, and heard the breathing from the kitchen monitor through the hallway like it was laughing. He walked back to the kitchen and looked at the screen. The image had updated. Now the nursery looked exactly like it did in real life. Lights on, empty room, chair still. The breathing stopped. Mark stared at it, chest tight. Lena whispered, "It stops when you check." Mark nodded slowly. "It wants us to check." The whisper returned, softer. "Yes." Lena's hands were shaking. "Why?" The monitor answered with a sound that wasn't breathing anymore. A low, steady hum behind the audio, like pressure in a sealed space. Then a new sound layered over it. A soft, wet inhale that sounded like it came from right next to the microphone. And then, so quietly it almost blended with the hum, a second set of breathing appeared. 2 breaths. 2 different rhythms. One steady adult breath, one faster imitation, like a child pretending. Mark's skin went cold. There's more than one. Lena grabbed the nursery camera app again and turned up the audio on her phone. Still nothing. No breathing. No hum. The monitor was the only device hearing it, and the monitor was the only device showing the chair move, which meant the monitor wasn't reporting the room. It was generating a version of it. Mark did the second check before Lena could stop him. He lifted the monitor and aimed it at the hallway, like pointing it toward the nursery would force it to behave. The screen flickered. The nursery image disappeared. For half a second, the monitor showed a different feed. Not the nursery. A tight close-up of Mark's face. Black and white night vision, but from too close, like the camera was inches from his skin. His eyes in the feed were open wide, but the real Mark wasn't looking at the monitor anymore. He was staring down at it, confused. On screen, his own face turned slightly, and his mouth moved. The whisper came through the speaker in Mark's voice, flattened and calm. "Now it can see you." Lena recoiled so fast she hit the fridge with her hip. "Mark, stop." Mark's hands shook. He tried to power the monitor off. The screen stayed on. He tried to pull the battery. The breathing continued, steady and close, like the device didn't need power anymore. And then a third sound arrived, the quietest and most terrifying of all. A baby's soft coo, faint and distant, coming through the monitor speaker. But their baby was in the bedroom with them. Lena stared at Mark with horror. "That's our baby." Mark's throat tightened. "No," the monitor whispered, calm and precise. "Check." Mark didn't move at first. He just stared at the monitor like it had become an eye on the counter. "Check." Lena's whole body reacted to the baby coo the way a parent's body always does, even before the mind catches up. She turned toward the bedroom hallway, already stepping, already reaching for the door. Mark grabbed her wrist. "The baby's in our room." Lena's eyes were wet and furious. "Then what the hell was that?" The monitor answered by playing another soft coo, followed by a slow adult inhale, like someone breathing directly over a crib rail. Mark forced himself to do the rational thing, confirm the baby without feeding the nursery. He led Lena to their bedroom and kept his eyes on the bassinet the whole way, like attention could hold it in place. The baby was there, sleeping, breathing quick and irregular like newborns do. Tiny fists, tiny mouth, real. Lena exhaled hard like she'd been holding her breath underwater. Then the monitor in the kitchen spoke again, muffled through the hallway walls, loud enough to reach them anyway. "Check." Mark froze, still staring at the bassinet. Lena whispered, "It knows we looked." Mark swallowed. "It wants us to look somewhere else." They went back to the kitchen together. The monitor screen showed the nursery in night vision again, even though the nursery lights were on, as if the device had decided the room's reality didn't matter. The rocking chair on screen was moving now, slow and steady. The breathing was closer than before, and the baby's coo played again, faint and distant, like it was coming from the far corner of the nursery. Lena's hands started shaking. "That's her. That's her sound." Mark tried to keep his voice flat. "It's an audio clip." The monitor immediately answered with Mark's own voice, slightly flattened as if emotion had been removed. "It's her." Mark went cold. He hadn't said that. He reached for the monitor's power cable and yanked it out of the wall. The screen stayed on. The breathing didn't change. Lena backed away until she hit the fridge. "It doesn't need power." Mark forced himself not to argue with the obvious. He took the monitor and carried it toward the nursery door without opening it, holding it up as if the device itself could be confronted. The screen flickered. The nursery image snapped into a tighter angle, as if the camera had moved inside the room, close to the crib. Too close. Mark could see the crib bars in the frame. He could see the edge of a blanket. He could see the empty space where a baby should be. Yet the cooing continued, soft and patient. Then the breathing stopped. For 1 second the monitor speaker was silent. A whisper came through, gentle and precise like a nurse giving instruction. "Open the door." Mark's jaw tightened. He didn't. The nursery door handle turned a fraction on its own. Not fully, just enough to make a soft mechanical click that said the latch had moved. Lena's breath caught. "Mark." The monitor screen updated again. This time it wasn't empty space in the crib. This time the camera showed a shape leaning over it. Not a face. Not a person. A darker mass of darkness in the corner of the frame, too close to the lens, like a shoulder-blocking light. The baby coo played once more, right under that shadow, like bait under a hook. Mark felt his whole body surge forward before his mind decided anything. A clean parental reflex. Intervene. Lena grabbed his arm with both hands and pulled him back. "No, don't." Mark's teeth clenched. "If it's in there." Lena shook her head hard. "If it was in there, it would want you to go in." The whisper came again, closer, still calm. "Check." Mark didn't answer. He didn't open the door, but his eyes flicked to the nursery handle anyway, and the instant they did, the breathing returned, so loud it sounded wet, and the monitor speaker whispered in a tone that made Mark's stomach drop because it wasn't threatening. It was satisfied. Good. The good felt like a hand on the back of Mark's neck, not comfort, training. Lena pulled him away from the nursery door and shoved the monitor into a kitchen drawer like it was a live insect. She slammed it shut. The breathing continued through the wood, not muffled, not quieter, as if the drawer had no effect at all. Mark stared at the drawer, chest tight. "It's still playing." Lena's voice shook. "Then we don't listen." She grabbed Mark's arm and dragged him back to the bedroom, closed the door, and turned on every light. Lamp, overhead, closet, bathroom. Brightness everywhere, like light could overwrite sound. They sat on the bed with the baby between them, eyes wide, forcing themselves to watch the bassinet like attention could keep the baby anchored. For 2 minutes, the house was quiet. Then Mark's phone buzzed. A notification from the nursery camera app. Motion detected. Mark's hand moved toward it on reflex. Lena slapped his wrist. Hard. No, she hissed. That's the point. Mark swallowed. What if it's real? Lena's eyes were wet with anger. It's never real when it asks you to check. The phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Then a second notification. Sound detected. Mark felt the hot pressure of panic rise, because sound detected in a nursery is the most powerful trigger a parent can receive. His nervous system didn't care if the baby was in the room with him. It cared that a system meant to protect his child was telling him danger existed elsewhere. The bedroom door handle clicked softly. Not turning. A tiny mechanical test. Lena froze. Did you hear that? Mark nodded. From the other side of their bedroom door, the baby monitor breathed. Slow adult breathing. Right outside their room now. Lena's skin went cold. It moved. Mark forced himself to speak carefully. Low to Lena, not to the door. We didn't bring it in here. Lena shook her head, barely breathing. It doesn't need you to. The breathing outside the door shifted. Closer. Like whoever was breathing leaned toward the crack at the bottom. Then a whisper came through, softer than before. Not a command. A lullaby hum. A few notes. Familiar enough to make Lena's stomach drop. That's my mom's, she whispered. She used to. Mark grabbed her wrist. Don't finish that. Because he heard it too. The melody wasn't random. It was specific. It was personal. The whisper turned into Lena's mother's voice, gentle and tired. Lena, sweetheart, check on the baby. Lena's face crumpled like she'd been punched. That's not her. Mark's jaw tightened. It's using memory. The baby in the bassinet made a tiny noise, a real sleepy grunt. Mark flinched anyway. Every sound felt like bait now. Every sound felt like it might be the monitor speaking through their child. The breathing outside the door stopped. Silence stretched tight. Then the voice on the other side spoke again, and this time it was their baby's cry. A newborn's cry, sharp and urgent, the exact pitch that makes your heart slam and your body move before your mind. Lena shot off the bed. Mark caught her by the waist. No. She clawed at his arms. That's her. Mark forced her to look down at the bassinet. Their baby was still there, still asleep, no crying. The cry continued anyway, right outside the bedroom door, louder now, as if the hallway had turned into a speaker. The nursery camera app buzzed again. Baby crying. Mark stared at the notification and felt something inside him snap into a terrible understanding. The system wasn't trying to lure them into the nursery anymore. It was moving the nursery toward them. It was making the whole house a nursery, because anywhere a parent hears a cry becomes a place they must check. The bedroom door handle turned a fraction. Click. The cry outside the door stopped instantly, and the breathing returned, slow and close, like whoever was there was smiling. A whisper followed in Mark's voice, flattened and calm. Open. Lena pressed her hands over her ears and shook her head, sobbing silently. Mark held the baby close and stared at the door without looking at the handle, because he was terrified that one more glance would count as a check. Then the house did the cleanest, cruelest thing it could do. The baby monitor played the sound of their baby cooing again, but this time it came from inside their bedroom closet, behind a closed door, like the sound had moved into the room with them. And that's when Mark understood the rule they'd been ignoring. It wasn't, don't check the nursery. It was, don't check at all, because the moment you check, it learns where to put the sound next. Mark didn't go to the closet. He couldn't. The moment he moved toward it, he felt the same thing he'd felt at the nursery door, his body rushing ahead of his judgment, driven by a reflex older than thought. The coo came again from behind the closet door, soft and perfect, like the sound had been placed there carefully. Lena's voice broke. It's in the closet. Mark tightened his hold on the baby. It's a recording. The closet answered by letting out a slow adult inhale, right behind the coo, like someone was breathing through a smile. If this is already getting under your skin, hit like and subscribe. It helps me keep digging into cases like this. Now, back to the timeline. Lena grabbed Mark's phone and opened the nursery camera app again, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. She didn't even look at the video feed at first. She went straight to the audio meter. Flat. No sound detected. Then the app updated by itself. Sound detected. Breathing. Lena stared at the word breathing like it had teeth. It's not even pretending it's the baby now, Mark whispered. It wants us to verify the source. Because that's how it won. It didn't drag you into a room. It made you walk into a room willingly, convinced you were being responsible. The closet coo became a tiny cry, just a hint of distress, the kind that makes your chest tighten. The baby in Mark's arms made a real sleepy noise and shifted, and Mark flinched anyway, terrified that the house would start using their child's real sounds as a feedback loop. Lena grabbed a bedside chair and shoved it in front of the closet door, not to lock it, but to interrupt the instinct, a physical barrier between her and a check. The coo stopped immediately. Silence. For 2 seconds, the room felt lighter. Then the baby monitor breathed again from the hallway, slow and close, as if it had moved away from the closet and repositioned itself to the bedroom door instead. And a whisper came through, calm and precise, in Lena's own voice, flattened. Good. Now check the door. Mark felt his stomach drop. It was never about the closet. It was about the next check, the next confirmation, the next place they'd try to make reality behave. Lena backed away from the closet and kept her eyes on the baby's chest rising and falling. We leave, she whispered. Mark nodded too fast, grateful for any plan that wasn't checking. They didn't grab bags. They didn't grab shoes properly. They moved like people evacuating a fire. Baby first, everything else irrelevant. Mark carried the baby into the living room. Lena followed, every light still on, every lamp like a desperate promise. They aimed for the front door. The front door opened easily, too easily. Cold night air slid in, and with it came a new sound. The baby monitor breathing, but now it wasn't coming from inside the house. It was coming from the porch, right outside. Lena froze on the threshold. Mark stopped behind her, baby held tight. They stared at the doormat without lifting their eyes, because even looking outward felt like a check the house could reward. The breathing outside shifted closer, like someone leaning toward the crack. Then the porch light dipped once, a tiny blink, and Lena's phone buzzed with a new notification from the nursery app. Motion detected. Front door. Mark's mouth went dry. It's tracking us, Lena whispered. It's making the front door the nursery, because that's what it had learned. Wherever the parent's attention goes, that becomes the room that matters. Mark stepped back from the threshold and shut the door. The breathing outside stopped instantly. Relief tried to hit them both. Mark hated that he felt it. Lena hated it too. You could see it in her face, the horror of realizing the system could reward you for the smallest compliance. Then, from the kitchen drawer where the monitor was buried, the device emitted one clean sound. A soft click, not a button, a channel opening, and in the speaker, very close and very calm, a new voice appeared, still careful, still helpful, but no longer pretending. You can't leave, it whispered. Not until you check. Mark's spine went cold at the sentence. You can't leave, not until you check. It wasn't shouted, it wasn't angry. It sounded like a customer service rep explaining a policy, and that made it worse. It meant whatever was doing this didn't need emotion. It needed procedure. Lena stared at the closed front door and whispered, "Check what?" The monitor breathed softly from the kitchen drawer, and the whisper returned in Mark's flattened voice. Everything. Mark swallowed hard. He forced his eyes to stay on the baby's chest. Up, down, real, present, safe. Lena backed into the living room and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. "We call someone," she said. "My sister, a neighbor, anyone." Mark didn't want her to. Calls were channels. Channels were doors. But doing nothing felt like waiting for an elevator that would never arrive. Lena hit call. The line connected. For half a second, there was normal ringing. Then her sister answered. Or it sounded like her sister. Same voice. Same sleepy rasp. "Hey," the voice said. "What's wrong?" Lena's shoulders dropped a fraction with relief. Human voice. Outside connection. She started fast. "Something is happening with the baby monitor. It's..." The voice interrupted her gently, in Lena's own tone, flattened. "Check the nursery." Lena froze. Mark felt his stomach drop. Lena whispered, "No." The voice on the call repeated, still Lena's voice. "No." Mark snatched the phone and ended the call. The screen stayed lit, and a voicemail notification appeared instantly. New message. Duration, year 000. He turned the phone face down like it was an eye. Lena's breathing turned sharp. "It can hijack calls." Mark nodded once. "Anything that can carry a voice." The baby monitor clicked again from the kitchen drawer. A clean channel open sound. The whisper returned, calm and patient. Check. Lena stepped toward the kitchen like her body had a string tied to it. Mark grabbed her elbow and held her back. No more checking, he said low. Not the nursery, not the closet, not the door. Nothing. Lena's eyes were wet. Then what do we do? Mark looked around the living room like he was trying to find a tool that wasn't also a trap. His gaze landed on the breaker panel by the hallway. Electricity. Control. A switch that could shut off the entire system in one move. Lena saw where he was looking and shook her head before he moved. If you cut power, the baby monitor will still... I don't know, Mark said. But I know this. The devices are making us move. He carried the baby with him to the breaker panel, keeping his eyes low. He didn't want to look down the hallway. The hallway had already learned how to breathe. He flipped the main breaker. The house went dark. Not dim. Black. The baby monitor in the kitchen kept breathing. Mark's throat tightened. Of course it did. Then Lena's phone lit up in the darkness like a small flashlight, even though the power was out. The screen showed the nursery camera app open by itself. A live feed. Night vision. The nursery looked empty. And now, in the center of the crib, there was something that made Lena choke on a sob. A shape under the blanket. The size of a baby. The rise and fall of breathing. Mark's blood turned to ice. The baby was in his arms. He could feel her weight, her warmth, her real breathing against his chest. Yet the screen was showing a baby in the crib anyway. Two versions of their child. And the monitor breathed from the kitchen as if approving. Lena whispered, "That's her." Mark shook his head hard. No. The baby in his arms made a small noise, real and sleepy. Mark clung to that sound like a rope. The phone screen updated with a text overlay from the app. Sleeping. Lena's voice cracked. It's labeling it. Mark stared at the word and felt the trap snap into place. If they believed the baby was in the crib, they would go check. If they believed the baby was in their arms, they would still want to check just to prove the app was wrong. Either way, check. The whisper came again, close, almost kind. Just confirm. Mark's jaw clenched. He took the phone from Lena and, without looking at the screen again, walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer, and grabbed the baby monitor. It was warm in his hands, like something had been holding it. The breathing didn't come from the speaker anymore. It came from inside the casing. Mark carried it to the sink, filled a bowl with water, and shoved the monitor under the surface like he was drowning a mouth. The breathing continued under the water, muffled but steady, like lungs that didn't need air. Lena stared, horrified. It's not electronic. Mark pulled the monitor out and threw it into the microwave, slammed the door, and hit start. The microwave didn't turn on. No power. The monitor breathed anyway, inside the dark microwave, patient and close. Then, in Mark's flattened voice, the monitor whispered a sentence that made Lena's knees weaken. Your baby is still in the crib. Mark's grip tightened on the countertop. He forced his eyes to stay on the floor. Lena whispered, trembling, It wants us to pick which baby is real. Mark swallowed. It wants us to check until we believe the wrong one. The house stayed dark. The phone screen stayed lit anyway, showing the nursery feed, the fake sleeping label, the blanket rising and falling. Mark held their real baby tighter and made the only decision that still felt like his. He set the phone face down on the counter, turned his own face away from it, and said to Lena, low and firm, We don't verify anything in this house again. The whisper answered immediately, from somewhere that wasn't the monitor now. Somewhere closer. Then you won't know which one you're holding. Mark didn't answer the whisper. He didn't even let his face react, because reaction is the first tiny agreement. We don't verify, he said to Lena, low and tight. We don't check. We don't compare. We trust what we can feel. Lena's hands shook. How? Mark looked down at the baby's chest against his shirt. Wait, he said. Warmth, breath, that's real. The house stayed dark, but the phone on the counter still glowed like an open eye. The nursery feed kept running. The blanket in the crib rose and fell with steady breathing that looked painfully convincing. Lena stared at it, and Mark saw the moment the trap hooked her. Not belief, doubt. Doubt is the doorway. She whispered, What if... Mark cut her off. No. The whisper returned, calm and close, from somewhere that wasn't a device anymore. You can't be sure. Lena flinched. Mark felt anger flare, not at Lena, at the mechanism. It wasn't trying to scare them. It was trying to turn them into the kind of people who check forever. Mark moved them away from every screen. He carried the baby to the living room and sat on the floor with his back against the couch, keeping the baby tucked tight, eyes on the carpet. Lena paced like a trapped animal, rubbing her arms as if cold would explain this. The whisper softened, almost kind. "Just look once." Mark didn't. The house tried a new lever. A soft baby cry rose from somewhere in the dark kitchen, distant at first, then closer, as if it was moving toward them through the hallway. It sounded identical to the baby's cry, the pitch that makes your spine go rigid. Lena gasped and took 2 steps forward before she caught herself. Mark held the baby tighter and forced himself to look only at her mouth, her tiny movements, the real warmth in his arms. The baby was still asleep. The crying continued anyway, now right outside the living room doorway, as if the hallway itself had become a speaker. Then the crying stopped. A slow adult inhale replaced it. The whisper came again, in Lena's flattened voice. "Go check." Lena covered her mouth with both hands, eyes wet. Mark's jaw clenched. He understood the escalation now. If they wouldn't check the nursery, it would bring the nursery to them. If they wouldn't check the closet, it would put sound behind any door it could use. So he stopped treating the front door as their exit. He went to the living room window. He didn't turn on lights. He didn't grab phones. He didn't grab keys. He moved like someone trying not to trigger an alarm system he couldn't see. He raised the window quietly and stepped out first onto the small porch roof, then helped Lena out behind him. Cold night air hit their faces. The street was quiet, normal. For one breath, Mark felt relief, and he hated that he felt it, because relief was always the reward for the wrong decision. They climbed down into the yard and moved toward the sidewalk. Mark kept the baby's face tucked against his chest so she stayed warm and hidden from any stray gaze. Then their neighbor's porch light clicked on. A man stepped out, half asleep, confused, drawn by movement. He squinted at Mark and Lena in the dim light and frowned. "Are you okay?" he asked. Mark didn't know how to answer safely, so he didn't. He just kept walking. The neighbor's gaze dropped to the bundle in Mark's arms. His expression changed. He looked uneasy, like his brain had received 2 different versions of the same image and couldn't reconcile them. "Where's the baby?" the neighbor said. Lena froze. Mark's stomach dropped. "What?" The neighbor swallowed, eyes locked on Mark's arms. "You're holding a blanket," he said slowly. "There's nothing in it." Lena's breath caught. She reached out and touched the baby's back, fingers pressing into warm fabric, into a tiny body. "It's right here," she whispered. The neighbor shook his head, confused and frightened now, like he was trying to be polite to a hallucination. "I don't see it," he said. Behind them, from inside their dark house, the baby cry started again, loud enough to spill through the cracked window like it was coming from the living room. The neighbor's head snapped toward the sound. "There," he said, relieved. "That's the baby." Lena made a broken sound. Mark felt ice spread through his chest. The mechanism wasn't just generating a fake feed. It was splitting perception, making different people confirm different versions. So no matter what you do, someone will insist you're wrong. The whisper arrived one last time, close and satisfied, not from a device, not from a room, from the space right behind Mark's ear. "Now you'll check," it said, because someone else already did. Mark tightened his grip on the real warmth in his arms and kept walking, refusing to look back at the house, refusing to look at the neighbor's face. But Lena's gaze was stuck on the streetlight ahead, on the way shadows pooled at the curb like something waiting to be stepped into. She whispered, barely audible, "What if it can make me not feel her too?" Mark didn't answer, because the truth was, he didn't know. And not knowing was exactly what the house had been trying to manufacture since the first breath came through the monitor. Mark kept walking because stopping felt like negotiation, and negotiation was what the house wanted. Lena followed, shaking, eyes darting between the streetlight pool ahead and the dark windows behind them. The neighbor called after them, voice rising with panic. "Hey, you can't just—" Mark didn't answer. He didn't look back. He held the baby tighter and focused on the only proof that didn't require belief. The weight in his arms, the warmth against his chest, the faint, irregular newborn breathing he could feel through fabric. Lena whispered, "He thinks it's a blanket." Mark's jaw clenched. He's looking at the wrong version. The neighbor's porch light flickered once, then again. Not off, just a tiny dip, like a blink. The neighbor stepped forward and his voice changed mid-step, like the sentence got replaced on his tongue. In Mark's flattened voice, the neighbor said calmly, "Go back inside." Lena flinched so hard she stumbled. Mark didn't let himself react. He kept moving toward their car parked at the curb. If they could get away from the house, away from its rooms and doors and devices, maybe the split would stop. They reached the car. Mark opened the back door and slid in first, keeping the baby pressed to his chest. Lena climbed in after him, hands shaking so hard she had to try the seatbelt twice. The moment the doors closed, the world outside muffled. The car became a little box of breath and fabric and vinyl, and in that box, the trap sharpened, because now they were alone with their own perception. Lena stared at Mark's arms. "Show me," she whispered. Mark's stomach dropped. "No, just for a second," Lena pleaded, tears spilling. "I need to know I'm not crazy." Mark understood the danger. If he lifted the baby into the car light, if Lena leaned in, if they both verified together, they would be doing exactly what the monitor had trained them to do, checking until the check became a habit. But Lena's hands were already reaching, and Mark saw the worst possibility in her eyes. Not curiosity, not doubt, fear that the baby might not be there anymore. Mark had to choose between two terrible outcomes: refuse and let doubt eat them alive, or confirm and teach the system the exact ritual it wanted. He did a third thing. He put Lena's hand on the baby's back without letting her look. "Feel," he said. "Don't watch." Lena's fingers pressed into warm fabric. A tiny body shifted under her palm. A real reflex. A real weight. Lena sobbed, relief and terror mixing into one sound. Then, from the front seat, the car's speakers clicked. Not the radio. Not Bluetooth. A clean channel open click like the baby monitors, but now coming from the dashboard. The breathing started. Slow. Adult. Close. Lena's hand flew off the baby like she'd been burned. Mark went rigid. The voice followed, calm and precise, in Lena's flattened tone. "Now check." Mark didn't move. He stared at the back of the driver's seat and forced his eyes to stay on the stitching. Not the windows. Not the mirror. Not the dark outside that could become a screen. Lena whispered, "It followed us." Mark swallowed. "It follows the reflex." The baby in Mark's arms made a small sleepy noise. Real. Soft. Mark clung to it. The adult breathing in the speakers shifted closer, like someone leaning into a microphone. Then the speakers played a baby cry again, sharp and urgent, and Lena's entire body jerked toward the front seat, toward the dashboard, toward the source. Mark caught her wrist. "No," he said. Lena's eyes were wild. "But what if that's her?" Mark pressed her palm to the baby's chest again, hard, grounding. "Feel," he said. "Feel." The cry continued from the speakers anyway, and the cruel part was how convincing it was. It sounded like it was right there in the car, not in a house, not in a device. It sounded like it was coming from the space between their seats. The neighbor knocked on the car window. 3 knocks. Mark's blood went cold because the knocks had the same calm rhythm as the breathing. The neighbor's face was pale behind the glass. He leaned in and mouthed something, and when he spoke, the sound didn't match his lips. It was Mark's voice again, flattened and calm. "There's no baby in there." Lena made a broken sound. Mark kept his eyes forward and whispered, "Don't listen." The neighbor knocked again, harder, 3 knocks. Then he pointed toward the house. The baby cry from the dashboard speakers stopped instantly. Silence. A soft whisper replaced it, intimate and satisfied. "See," it said. "Now you'll go back and check." Mark's jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. He could feel the machine logic in the sequence. Isolate them, split perception, create a contradiction, then offer one path to resolution. Go back, verify, correct, repeat. Lena's breathing turned shallow. "What do we do?" Mark didn't know how to answer without turning the question into a handle. He chose the only action that wasn't a check. He started the car. The engine turned over. The headlights washed the street. The neighbor stepped back, startled. Mark backed away from the curb slowly, careful not to jerk, careful not to look into mirrors too long, careful not to make any sudden movements that felt like searching. As the car rolled forward, the dashboard screen lit up by itself, not with a map, with the nursery feed, black and white night vision, the crib, the blanket rising and falling, and a text overlay in plain white letters, "Sleeping." Lena's throat tightened. "It's still showing it." Mark kept driving, eyes locked on the lane line. The whisper came through the car speakers one more time, calm as a rule. "You can drive all night," it said, "but you'll still check eventually." Because the most terrifying part of this case wasn't the breathing in the empty room. It was the way the house was turning love into a loop. Mark drove with his eyes locked on the lane line, because the moment his gaze drifted to the dashboard screen, he could feel the pull to verify. The nursery feed on the display wasn't just an image. It was a dare. Lena sat rigid in the back seat, one hand pressed to the baby's chest, the other gripping the seatbelt strap like it could keep reality in place. She didn't look at the screen. She stared at the baby's hair, the tiny rise and fall, the only thing that didn't require belief. The whisper came through the car speakers again, calm and close. "You'll check eventually." Mark didn't answer. He turned the radio off. The whisper continued anyway, as if off was a suggestion. Lena whispered, "It's inside the car." Mark swallowed. "It's inside the reflex." They drove to the only place Mark could think of that wasn't home and wasn't the street. A police station. Bright lights. Cameras. People trained to intervene. A place where checking feels like procedure, not obsession. As soon as the police station came into view, the dashboard screen went black. Not dim. Off. Relief hit Mark for half a second, and he hated it, because relief meant the system was approving the choice. Then the baby monitor breathing returned through the car speakers, louder now, closer, like someone leaning in behind the dashboard. Lena's voice shook. Why did it stop showing the nursery? Mark understood instantly. It didn't want them to use the police station to correct the story. It wanted to keep the contradiction alive. They parked under the station floodlights. Mark killed the engine. Silence filled the cabin for one beat. Then the car's interior lights clicked on by themselves. The breathing shifted to the space between the front seats. Too close. Wet. Adult. Controlled. Lena's hand tightened on the baby's chest. The baby stirred, made a soft, real noise. Mark clung to that like a rope. He opened the car door and stepped out with the baby still pressed tight, refusing to look back at any screen. Lena followed, eyes scanning the lot like she expected shadows to gather around them. A front desk officer inside the station looked up as they approached the glass doors. Mark could see him through the window, a normal person with a normal bored expression. Mark pushed the door open and stepped inside. The station smelled like coffee and paper. Fluorescent lighting flattened the corners. For one breath, Mark felt the world reassert itself. The front desk officer lifted his head. "Can I help you?" Mark tried to speak and realized his throat felt tight, like even words had become risky. He forced out, "We need help. Something is happening in our house." The desk officer frowned. "Is your baby okay?" Mark looked down at the bundle in his arms and felt his stomach drop because the question was the same hook, just in a different mouth. "Yes," Mark said quickly. "She's right here." The desk officer's eyes drifted to the baby, then to Mark's face, then past Mark's shoulder toward the lobby security monitor on the wall. Mark didn't turn. He refused. He could feel his body wanting to check what the security screen was showing. The desk officer's expression shifted. Not fear. Blankness. That wrong focus, like a camera auto-locking. His mouth moved. Mark's voice came out, flattened and calm. "Check the nursery." Lena made a small choking sound. Mark's spine went cold. The desk officer blinked and continued. Still Mark's voice. Still calm. "It's safer if you verify." Mark didn't answer. He stepped backward slowly, keeping his gaze on the floor. He didn't want to argue inside a police station. Arguing is engagement. Engagement is how the system learns what you'll do next. As soon as they crossed the threshold back outside, the desk officer's voice returned to normal behind them, confused. "Sir, are you okay?" Mark didn't turn around. Lena whispered, shaking. "It can use anyone." Mark nodded once. "Anyone who asks the right question." They got back into the car and drove again, because staying near the station felt like staying near a new set of mouths. Mark aimed for a motel on the highway with exterior doors and bright parking lot lights. No lobbies, no hallways, less infrastructure to hijack. They checked in with minimal words. Mark paid. Lena signed. They didn't explain. Explanation creates a narrative, and narratives demand verification. Inside the room, Mark did something that felt extreme, but necessary. He took every device and removed it from the room. Phones off and sealed in a bathroom drawer. TV unplugged. Clock turned to the wall. No lamps with smart bulbs. No anything that could become a screen. They kept one light on. A plain bedside lamp, warm and steady. They sat on the bed with the baby between them, watching the only reality they allowed themselves to confirm. Breath, warmth, wait. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then the motel room phone clicked. Not ringing, a click, like a channel opening. And from the receiver, slow adult breathing began. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Mark didn't move. He didn't reach for it. He didn't hang it up. Hanging it up would be a check. The breathing continued, calm and close. like it didn't need the phone, like the phone was only a prop. Then the sound that almost broke Lena arrived. A soft baby coo from the bathroom drawer, from the phones they'd turned off, from the place they'd hidden the screens. Mark felt his stomach drop because the Casefile's rule wasn't about a monitor anymore. It was about the act of seeking confirmation. The whisper came next, very close, not from the phone, not from the bathroom, not from the lamp, from the space right behind Mark's ear. "You can't quarantine a question," it said calmly. "You can only stop asking it." Mark closed his eyes for 1 second, not sleep, a deliberate reset, and opened them with a single decision. No more devices, no more screens, no more third-party mouths. They would ride out the night with one proof only, the baby in their arms. And they would not check anything else, no matter what the house tried to make them hear. Mark didn't tell Lena the plan like it was a plan. He knew if he spoke it out loud, the room would treat it like a challenge. He just acted. He moved the baby's bassinet to the bed, positioned it so Lena could keep a hand on the baby without having to look. Then he sat on the floor with his back against the bed, eyes on the carpet, forcing his attention to stay low and boring. Lena mirrored him, sitting upright against the headboard, one palm resting gently on the baby's stomach. Warm, real, present. The motel room phone kept breathing. Slow, adult breathing. Calm, patient. The coo from the bathroom drawer came again, soft and distant, like the sound was behind a door that wanted to be opened. Lena's eyes squeezed shut for a fraction of a second. Not sleep, pain. Mark whispered, "Don't." Lena nodded. The breathing shifted, closer as if it approved the tension. Then the voice arrived, gentle and intimate in Lena's flattened tone. "You're a good mother. You should check." Lena's shoulders shook. Mark felt anger flare again, because the thing wasn't attacking them with claws. It was attacking them with praise. Praise makes you comply. Praise makes you prove you deserve it. Mark kept his eyes on the carpet fibers. He didn't answer. He didn't argue. He didn't deny. The voice tried a different angle. Mark's flattened voice, calm and tired. "I don't think she's breathing." Lena jerked upright, hand pressing harder to the baby's stomach. The baby's breath was there, quick and irregular, and Lena felt it. But the sentence had done what it was designed to do. It inserted doubt. "Doubt is a check you perform inside your own body," Lena whispered, shaking. "She is." The moment the word left her mouth, the motel lamp flickered once. A tiny dip, a blink. Mark's stomach dropped. The room had logged the response. The breathing on the phone stopped instantly. Silence hit so hard it felt like pressure releasing. Relief tried to land in Mark's chest. He didn't accept it. He knew what it meant. Then the phone breathed again. But now it wasn't from the receiver. It was from the air above the bed, close enough that Lena's hair lifted slightly with the movement. Mark's skin went cold. The voice returned, calm and precise. "Now you're answering." Lena's hand shook on the baby's stomach. The baby shifted, made a tiny real noise, and Lena started to cry silently, her body trying to stay functional through terror. Mark forced himself to speak only one sentence, low and controlled. No more words. Lena nodded hard. The air breathed again. Then the bathroom drawer clicked. Not a phone notification. A literal mechanical click, like a latch being tested. Mark didn't move. Lena's eyes darted toward the bathroom and stopped herself, snapping her gaze down to the bed. The voice whispered, almost pleased, "Good." Then the sound they'd been dreading arrived. A baby cry. Not from the baby on the bed. From the bathroom. Sharp, urgent, identical. The pitch designed to make your spine straighten and your feet move. Lena's whole body surged toward the bathroom door before her mind caught up. Mark stood up instantly and blocked her with his body, palms out. "No," he said. Lena's face crumpled. "But what if—" Mark cut her off without raising his voice. "Feel." He took her hand and pressed it firmly to the baby's chest. Warm, breathing, alive. The bathroom cry continued anyway, escalating, as if it was getting worse to force the reflex harder. Mark held Lena's hand on the baby until her fingers stopped trembling. The cry stopped abruptly. Silence. Then slow adult breathing came from the bathroom door gap, close and wet, like someone leaning down to the floor. The motel lamp dipped once, and in that dip, the voice whispered the sentence that was meant to break them. "If you don't check, you're neglecting her." Lena's mouth opened on a sob. Mark grabbed the motel room phone with his left hand, not to hang it up, not to dial, not to check anything, just to remove it from the hook. He carried it into the bathroom and placed it inside the bathtub. then shut the bathroom door. He didn't look at the mirror. He didn't look at the drawer. He didn't touch the phones. He just created distance from the loudest prop. The baby cry started again, now from inside the bathtub area behind the closed door, muffled but persistent. Mark returned to the bed and sat on the floor again, back against the mattress, eyes on the carpet. Lena stared at him like she didn't understand how he could sit still while a baby cried in the bathroom. Mark whispered the only truth that mattered. "It's not a baby," he said. "It's a test." The bathroom door handle turned a fraction. Click. Lena flinched. Mark didn't move. He could feel the mechanism's patience now, the way it didn't need to escalate quickly. It only needed to outlast human endurance. And Mark understood what the Casefile warning really meant. Do not check. Because checking isn't one action. It's a habit you build under stress until the habit becomes a door you open automatically. Morning light leaked through the motel curtains in thin stripes, and the world tried to look normal again. That normality was the most dangerous part, because it makes you relax. It makes you think the night ended the way nights are supposed to end. Mark didn't let it. He stayed on the floor with his back against the bed until his legs cramped. Lena stayed upright, palm on the baby's chest, eyes dry from crying without rest. They didn't speak. They didn't check the bathroom. They didn't open drawers. They didn't look at screens. They treated every impulse like a trap. The bathroom had gone quiet at some point. Not a dramatic stop, just a fading into silence that felt like the mechanism had decided it had enough data for now. Lena whispered one word without meaning to. "Please." The baby on the bed stirred, made a small, real noise, and Lena pressed her hand to her stomach like she'd been punched by her own desperation. She looked at Mark as if asking permission to do the obvious thing. "Check the bathroom. Make sure. Confirm the phones are still off. Confirm the monitor isn't there." Mark shook his head once. No, because he understood something the case taught him the hard way. If you check after it goes quiet, you teach it that silence is the best lure. Lena swallowed hard and held still. At 7:12 a.m., Mark's phone, still off, still in the bathroom drawer, buzzed once. A single vibration like a heartbeat. Lena froze. Mark didn't move. He didn't go to it. He didn't open anything. He didn't even look toward the bathroom. The vibration stopped. Then, from inside the bathroom, a soft exhale came through the door gap, slow and adult, as if someone had been standing there the entire time. Mark stared at the carpet fibers and waited. Silence returned. Lena's shoulders loosened a fraction, and Mark saw the exhaustion trying to take her. Not full sleep. The micro drop. The eyelids wait. He whispered, low. "Walk." They stood up together, slowly, baby in Mark's arms now. They walked small circles in the room to keep their bodies engaged. No sitting, no leaning, no letting the mind soften into rest. At 8:03 a.m., Mark opened the motel door and stepped into daylight without looking back at the room. Lena followed. They returned the key at the front desk with minimal words. No explanations, no stories. Stories demand details, and details demand checks. They drove home in full daylight, windows down, no radio, no screens. Mark held the baby in the back seat and kept one hand on her chest the whole way. Not because he doubted her, because he refused to let the mechanism plant doubt in silence. When they pulled into their driveway, their house looked normal. The curtains were still. The porch light was off. The world was behaving. Lena stared at the front door like it was a mouth she'd kissed once and regretted. Mark said low, "We don't go in." Lena's throat tightened. "Our stuff." Mark didn't flinch. Stuff is replaceable. Habits aren't. They went to Lena's sister's house instead. They told her the safest version of the truth. The baby monitor glitched. They panicked. They needed a place to sleep. No supernatural details. No mention of breathing. No mention of voices. No mention of check. Because the most insidious part wasn't the entity. It was the rule it was trying to install in them. The reflex to verify. That night at Lena's sister's house, they kept the baby in the same room again. No monitors, no cameras, no apps, no devices. At 2:12 a.m., the house was silent. Then Lena heard it anyway. A soft adult inhale from the hallway. Not from a device, not from a speaker, just breathing in the empty air, close enough to feel like someone standing near the door. Lena's whole body tightened. Mark didn't move. He kept his hand on the baby's chest. The breathing paused as if waiting for them to react. A whisper followed, calm and intimate, in Lena's flattened voice. "Check." Lena didn't. Mark didn't. The breathing slowly faded, not defeated, satisfied, like a teacher ending a lesson early because the student finally did the correct thing. And that's the ending nobody likes because it doesn't feel like a win. They never proved what it was. They never caught it on camera. They never saw a figure in the nursery. They did something harder. They stopped feeding it. Because in this case file, the monster isn't what's in the empty room. It's the question it forces into your body until you can't help but ask it. Are you sure? And once you start checking for certainty, it owns you.